welcome back to Left in Kentucky. This is Roberto Henriquez,
And Dickerson.
and we are back in the first week of February. Yay!
Dun, dun, dun. We
Dun, dun.
made it through the 3,000 days of January.
January was a tough year.
Yeah. Yes, it was.
So,
Shoot.
and joining us this week, we have a guest with us this week. Drew Lawrence, who is a second year medical student, is joining us to talk about some of the issues with the state of medical care and whatnot in Kentucky. Welcome aboard, Drew.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk.
Yay. I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah,
We need you.
yeah,
We need a lot more of me. We need a lot of people to go to medical school, especially in this area. So,
Yes, we do. But also, I appreciate the fact, um, Roberto and I are both Gen Xers, and we hear so much from Gen Xers and even boomers and that in either roles of leadership or on podcasts or reporting the news and talking about things. So we're making a concerted effort this year to try to get younger people on, whether millennial or Gen Z or whomever. So I love that you're here and you were interested in coming on and speaking about the number one topic for us, and B, to give us a younger perspective and an insider's perspective. So I'm thrilled that you're here.
like I said, thanks for having me, and hopefully everyone can learn something today, including myself. So hopefully we have a productive conversation.
yeah.
Sounds good.
So so we generally are focused on Northern Kentucky, District 4, Congressional District 4, which stretches all the way from Maysville to the edges of Louisville, and all along the river. So we live in Boone, Kenton County, Campbell County, up here in the three Northern Kentucky counties, which have an abundance of doctors a and medical facilities, but that's not necessarily the case throughout much of our state.
Absolutely. And I actually, when I was doing my research on some sort of facts and figures I might want to talk about for today, one of the big things I noticed was that if you actually pull up a map of what's designated as like health physician shortage areas, which is where there's not enough physicians to meet demand, one of the few counties in the state that doesn't have that issue is actually Campbell, Kenton, and Boone. But basically every other issue in Congressional District 4, or every other county in Congressional District 4 is dealing with that issue. And basically, if you didn't know, a normal patient panel for a doctor is anywhere from about 1,000 to 1,500 patients.
Wow.
A designated area of what the government and like what a lot of like lobbying organizations look at as a physician shortage area is where there's 3,500 patients or more per one doctor. So the doctor has to see
Wow.
almost double or almost triple the amount of patients they would normally
Holy
see.
crap.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
So, I mean, even where we're at now, I mean, we have I think St. E does a good enough job. And we have some other independent doctors and different people like Christ and Tri-Health trying to come across the river. But I mean, if you look at Grant County, for instance, where I'm at, where you have 20,000 people and you have 4 or 5 primary care providers in the county, it's really tough. You're seeing a patient every 10 to 15 minutes. There's just no way you can take control of the multi-systemic issues in the body. So
Yeah.
for instance, if I have, I might come in for the sniffles, but maybe I need to be seen on, my cardiovascular health, or maybe I'm having shortness of breath that I don't really know why. And then factor in that, like, that physician shortage doesn't just count in primary care. It counts in, dermatology, cardiology, pulmonology. So, you might actually get your issue addressed, but need to see a specialist for care, and you just don't have the ability to get that. It's not uncommon to hear from people, I'll tell them I'm in medical school and they say, oh, what do you want to go into? And I'll say what I want to do. And they'll say, oh, I wish you were doing cardiology. It takes me 6 months or so, 9 months to get into the cardiologist. And
Absolutely.
we need that help everywhere.
As a former critical care nurse, and what's funny about what you just said is that, The heart was always my favorite. Dealing with cardiac patients was always my favorite. And, this was a problem back then. And you're going back to the 90s.
Yep.
So I think it's only exacerbated since then. And because you're from the Grant County area, I would love to ask how things have changed since the Saney facility down there shut down.
Which facility?
I wasn't there an ambulatory, like outpatient surgical center type place that they closed down, or am I thinking of the wrong place?
Honestly, I don't know of it.
Okay.
I haven't heard of it. As far as I'm aware, they've expanded a lot of cancer care down there. So, I think there's an infusion center down there now. But I mean, just speaking on that issue, think about it this way. Like if you had let's say you're having appendicitis and you need to go to the ER in Grant County, you still need to go get that surgical care somewhere else.
Right.
There's not a constant person on staff to take care of that issue. And it's even worse. I mean, if you think about let's think of Owen County, for instance, or Pendleton County, let's say you're out in one of those hollers somewhere and you have an urgent surgical issue. Let's say you have a strangulated hernia, it's cutting off blood supply. You need to be seen immediately. And It might take you 45 minutes to an hour just to drive to the hospital. That doesn't include your wait time, how long they're going to take to evaluate you, how long the imaging takes. So Grant County's we're pretty familiar with that issue. We're no stranger to not having access to care. And honestly, that was one of the things when I wrote my personal statement in medical school, I talked a lot about our small local hospital and about how it's a godsend to have, but when you have it, it's tough to solve all the issues with it,
Right, because everybody that would go there would expect to receive all-around care for everything. They don't realize that it's not a one-stop shop type thing. Yeah, I get that.
For instance, we have a lot of local doctors that teach where I'm at, in medical school and a lot of them work in Grant County or have worked in that ER or worked in that hospital. And they'll even tell you, if you're at Grant County down in Williamstown, at the hospital there, you're not going to have access to, constant imaging or constant people to do this procedure, that procedure there. So that, it's, I'm very fortunate that I'm in a great place for medical school, but it's interesting to learn just how even from county to county, 20 or 30 minutes away, it's a whole different practice environment, which is just kind of, for a lot of people, I don't think they think about that. They just assume, I'm hurt, I'm going to go to the hospital, I'm going to get adequate care just because I got it. But that's just simply not the case.
So why is there, it's interesting. Why is there such a shortage of medical professionals in those areas?
Part of it's a lot of things to unpack. So if we kind of broke down the numbers, we have a lot of primary care doctors in this country. And I'm just talking about primary care doctors. I'm not including in, nurse practitioners, physician's assistants who can also fill the void and fill the gaps. Part of it's a distributive problem, right? So, primary care, it doesn't pay as good. And so obviously people are attracted to economic incentives. If I told you can make $500,000 to $600,000 a year or $300,000 a year, you're probably going to pick the higher number. That's just humans are trained to respond to economic incentive. We're hardwired to make money. But part of it is also that, let's say you grew up in a nice suburb and you went to medical school and there's not many rural medical schools in the country. There's, probably a few dozen out of a few hundred, but, let's say you went to the University of Cincinnati, for instance, and you have all these great restaurants, you have sporting teams, you have great parks, public transportation, you have an international airport within 30 minutes that can get you to whole other continents and parts of the world. It's tough to convince someone, hey, you should go to Letcher County, Kentucky and, make less money than you would if you practiced in a different specialty in an urban area. So it's tough to incentivize people to, to do something that makes a little bit less money. It's still amazing money. It's not that, primary care doctors don't make good money. I think you'd be hard pressed to go down the street and ask someone, do you think doctors make not enough money. Most people say, oh, no, doctors can make great money. So
Right.
Right.
you're going to be hard pressed to convince people, oh, you should go practice in these areas where there's there's not enough doctors. Because even then, you're think about it from this perspective. If I told you you're going to make about the same amount of money salary wise, but you're going to work a lot harder for it because you're going to have to take care of 4,000 patients instead of 1,000. It's hard to convince people to do that. So it's, a lot of people that do it are very mission driven, and a lot of these
Right.
schools and programs that fill those voids are very mission driven. Specifically in our state, Pikeville, the University of Pikeville has a medical school down there. And, a big reason that it was put there was because you want to attract people from the area to go to medical school and stay in the area for medical school, and then hopefully practice in the area. And, Pikeville does they do a very good job of that. University of Kentucky does a very good job of that. I'm not that familiar with the University of Louisville and their statistics, but I'm sure they do a great job as well.
So, I mean, obviously, all these small communities can't establish medical schools to attract doctors to the area. Are there other ideas, other plans? Is anybody in the state legislature that you know of trying to come up with incentives to attract doctors?
Yeah. So, obviously, I'll get into the new medical campus up here in a little bit, but so the University of Kentucky. So, we have the University of Kentucky has a central campus in Lexington, and then there is campuses scattered around the state as well. That these don't take full, 200 person classes, but they're anywhere from 30 to 40 people a class. So there's one in Northern Kentucky at Northern Kentucky University. If you went up the elevator to the floor, it's all UK. It's like you went into Lexington as you went up the elevator, and then there's a campus in Bowling Green at Western Kentucky University, and then there's one in Moorhead that's specifically designed to kind of push people into rural medicine and really make them leaders in rural medicine.
What about the University of Louisville?
Honestly, I don't know much about it. I think they just have the campus there in Louisville. I think that's all they've got.
They don't have the kind of satellite branches that UK does.
I don't believe they do. They might, but I don't think they do off the top of my head.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And then,
well, we expect you to know every single thing, Drew.
That's right.
The other thing I just wanted to input, only because we've discussed this on one of our previous shows, is that, you're talking about primary care, which is the I would think the most populated area in terms of specialties within the medical field. There's more doctors there than there are specialists. So that to me would automatically be that connector of if we're having these sinkholes, these medical deserts for primary care, it's got to be dramatically worse for any kind of specialty care. And we already know that in the state of Kentucky, 74 now out of 120 counties do not have OBGYN care. So this is thinking about this and putting this all in perspective and bringing in the bigger picture that you're doing is phenomenal, because I feel like Kentuckians need this information to understand what's going on and where things are.
Yeah, I mean, if you specifically speaking to if you want the numbers, the Cicero Institute, they have a little fact sheet on our physician shortage. By 2030, we're projected to have a shortfall of 3,000 doctors across the state. So what's that, about 30 doctors per county? So, that is a lot of people who are not going to be getting care in an adequate time. Specifically, primary care alone, though, is projected to be short by 624 providers. Wow. So, you were talking about OB-GYN. That's a big thing that I think primary care could be a big fill for. Not a lot of people know this, but back in the day, your primary care doctor took care of you from your cradle to your grave, right? They might have delivered you. You were seen by your family care doctor up throughout your adulthood. And then, even as you've gotten older and you died, they call it the cradle to grave specialty for a reason. So a lot of people don't know this, but family medicine doctors often get trained in obstetrics. And out west, in particular, in the Midwest, states like Wyoming, Nebraska, those flyover states, a lot of the doctors that deliver babies there and do C-sections and do your routine, OB-GYN and your pelvic exams and your pap smears, those are actually a lot of the times family medicine doctors. In Northern Kentucky, we're unique in that we have one of the few programs that actually trains those doctors at St. E. So,
Oh, I didn't know that. And you know
yep.
what's funny that you bring that up is, as the only woman on this panel, um, that's how I get my care. But I love, 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 cannot say it enough, my, um, primary care person. Love her to death. She is just phenomenal. And she listens, she asks questions, she covers all the bases. I don't ever have to repeat myself. She's intimately familiar with my history when she sees me, and so on and so forth. I don't feel like she's one of those physicians that we've all seen in the past, and we know you're not going to be like this, Drew, who, they've got 15 minutes set aside for the appointment. They're in, they're out, and you wonder if they even realize who you are.
Yeah. And, that leads a lot of people to see, provider, mid-level providers, the MPs, the PAs, and it won't be that the care they receive is better, but they'll feel that, they feel like they've been heard. And that's so unfortunate that people go into, a doctor's office and they feel like their physician isn't listening to them. Or, let's say maybe you've seen your doctor for so many years and they've recently had their practice bought out by a private equity group or a larger hospital group. And now, they might have taken 20 or 30 minutes for a patient like they should have. And now they're doing 10 to 15 minutes per patient. And now patients come in and say, my doctor just doesn't listen to me like they used to. Or, I go in and they just want to take my blood pressure and they want to make sure I got my script and get me out of there. They don't want to talk about my preventative health or, how can I be healthier in the future? Or what can I do differently? Maybe I don't like this drug that I'm on. Is there something different? And so people, they see providers that maybe aren't fully equipped to have, the full basis of the pathophysiology behind these multi-systemic issues. I mean, if you look at Kentucky and our healthcare, I mean, we're in the worst of everything. We rank in the bottom. I think we are the worst state for cancer. If we're not 50, we're 49, 48, 47. Diabetes, we're down there. Obesity, heart failure. I mean, it seems like every single class I go to, when we start talking about, diabetes, a heart failure, a cancer, the lecturer or the physician will come and say, this is important because it cost our state this many billions of dollars. And then, we have, we're ranked in the bottom 5 of every category. So, it's great that we have these mid-level providers that fill these gaps, but I worry that it might not be enough for patients. I worry we're not meeting the needs. We're just kind of trying to put a Band-Aid over them.
Yeah, as with most things, the Kentucky can always say, thank goodness for Mississippi,
Yep.
who slightly edged us out in death rates for cancer. So we're number 2.
Yep. We're usually at the bottom. It's unfortunate. And there's a lot of people who are doing the best they can, but let's face facts. We're a bit of a poorer state. A lot of our population is very rural. It's very hard to, it ain't like you can just plop one big cancer center in the middle of Eastern Kentucky and congratulations, all your problems are solved.
Right.
People still got to drive, an hour or 2 hours to get to, 3 hours sometimes to get to Lexington just to get a cancer, chemo infusion.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't think the problem is that everyone wants a quick fix, whether that's in politics, healthcare, maybe they have a problem at the grocery store. They want someone to solve their problem now. That's just not going to happen with these problems. It's going to take decades and there's no magic cure. And we might invest in one thing and 20 years look up and be like, damn, that didn't work.
Right. I guess what, so my next question would be, for people listening to the podcast, I mean, what can they do to try to make this situation better? Is there anything?
The first thing you could do that everyone should be doing regardless is take care of their health, right? Take care of your health. That's you've only got one body. You're not gonna regrow a heart after you've stretched out, have congestive heart failure. And it's tough for people to do that. And I understand that there's so many barriers to that. But I think people need to, network within their communities and find ways to take people who, might have less fortunate circumstances or might have less access to care, and really, find ways to help people, help each other, build a sense of community. That's kind of the overarching theme I'm getting at here is, let's say you live in Grant County, it might be hard to go out and walk, there's not really a great place to do it. We don't have a lot of sidewalks. Unless you live in right there on Williamstown on Main Street. It ain't like you can get out and go take a little walk or a jog.
Right.
But maybe 4 or 5 people get together once or twice a week, and they'll carpool and they go to the park, and they just walk around the park for, an hour or two and just kind of talk and be social. The second thing I would say people could do is talk to providers. What do people, people don't often think of what providers need.
Right.
If you talk to a lot of providers now, they're going to tell you they're burnt out. They don't have enough time to talk to patients. So my point to that is figure out what providers need and find ways that people in the community can give it to them. And the best way that that's going to happen is probably come from supporting politicians and lobbying organizations that are real strong advocates for primary care and expanding access to care in Kentucky. And, I know there's a lot of people who work very passionately and diligently on this issue, but we just don't have the resources devoted to it to fully solve these issues. A lot of times the colleges of medicine in the state are the only people, working on some of these issues of trying to fill these physician shortages. And unfortunately, they can't do it alone. But I don't really have a great answer. It's tough. It's really tough to solve these issues.
You're young. You're supposed to have the answers to everything.
I know. I know.
Go ahead, Roberto.
No, I was gonna say, but I think that's a good point to say is we don't have good answers, and that's one of the things we need are ideas and possible answers. What are things we could try? So if, I think that's something that if you have an idea and even if it sounds crazy, talk to your medical provider or contact your state representative, contact your state senator and say, make an appointment and say, hey, I'd like to talk about healthcare. I had this idea. It may be crazy, but I'd like to see what you think.
Well, and one thing I would like to tie into that too, is that a ranking just came out. One of the rankings just came out last month, and Kentucky was ranked 50th in the country for states to retire to. And when you look at the categories and why Kentucky ranks so low, it has nothing to do with the cost of living and affordability, because Kentucky ranks right in the middle of the country on that, up in the upper 30s. But one of the number one reasons what tanked us so dramatically was healthcare. And older people, especially who have chronic diseases, this, that, and the other thing, their ability to take care of their health is going to be impacted by retiring here and by, the lack of available caregivers like Drew has talked about.
I think too, especially for older people. I mean, if you look at like long-term care facilities, those used to be called old folks homes. Those used to be where the old people went. I remember when I was a kid, that's what, was the, that's the old people's home, the retirement home. We don't really have those anymore now. They're kind of a mix. So you might have people who are in a long-term care facility now, or a skilled nursing facility, and they might be in their 30s or their 40s, or, so if you're an older individual who's retired here and you need access to that, you might be waiting on a bed for whatever reason, because so many other healthcare issues are not being met, that people are just being funneled into these facilities. And, a lot of people don't want to admit this, but who pays for a lot of those issues? It's you and I, the taxpayer. a lot of that funding comes from Medicare and Medicaid. And I'm not saying that Medicare and Medicaid shouldn't provide that service, because they absolutely should, and we should be empowering Medicare and Medicaid to meet that need for the people who need it. But it's it's tough for older people who they might really truly need skilled nursing care around the clock, and then now they're staying at home, and because they're staying at home and they didn't get the therapy or the care around the clock they needed, guess what? Now they broke a hip and they're back in the hospital, or now they've got a pneumonia, and now their quality of life's deteriorating. It's incredibly expensive keeping in the hospital, thousands and thousands of dollars a day to keep a patient in the hospital. And, I could see why old people, older individuals wouldn't want to retire here. I think it's a great place to live, and I truly love my state, but I can see the appeal of why, I would go somewhere else versus here.
Right.
And I think it's, as people are retiring, you're retiring in your mid to late 60s, we're living much longer, and we're generally more healthy in general for longer in our lives. So you may be looking for regular, like just regular medical care with a few extra issues for 20 or 25 years before you're ready for, some type of long-term care facility. And, a state that doesn't have, we're already short on doctors. Why would somebody want to retire here and going, okay, I've got to spend the next 20 years trying to find a doctor just for my regular medical care?
Right. Or trying to find a place to go if I need it when the time comes.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you prep for that in advance when you know that the waiting list is just so dauntingly long? Some of these issues, it's crazy to me. And it doesn't help that we live in a state which has a Republican supermajority that's hell bent on decreasing the amount of dollars sent to Medicaid and the amount of people who qualify to receive it. I think it just leaves more and more people out there floating in the wind.
I completely agree with you. And I think that people who are attacking Medicaid are looking at it through a very, short-sighted point of view, which is, how do we save tax dollars? The fact of the matter is, if you start sending people into the hospital with no insurance, or you start sending people to the hospital who are underinsured, that is going to have massive economic effects that are extremely negative, whether that be to the patient, whether that be to the providers, the hospital group that they're at. If Medicaid is not a bad thing. It gives a lot of people the care it needs. I mean, I'm currently on Medicaid because I'm 26. I don't have a job because I'm in the middle of school. Right. And like, the month I didn't have health insurance, after I turned 26, that was some of the most like nerve-wracking weeks. Like I quit working out. Seriously, I quit. I would play, basketball with my friends, or I'd go on jogs, or, lift weights at the gym. I quit doing all of that for a month because, if I got hurt, I'm screwed. I'm out 20, 30, 40, $50,000, sometimes six figures to $1 million in some cases. Right. And I pretty much like tried to live like I was in bubble wrap for a month.
I was going to say, wrap yourself in bubble wrap.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So, if we want to truly solve these issues, we don't need to be taking down the services that, maybe what we have isn't great. Obviously we don't want people on, ideally we shouldn't want everyone to be on, government assisted housing, government assisted insurance, things like that. But, if that's the best we've got right now, then we need to empower it and, give our resources to improving it instead of just tearing it down for the sake of tearing it down.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree, but gosh, let's not go down the housing rabbit hole.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother episode right there.
Exactly.
Would, if you could change one thing, Drew, what do you think is the most important thing that we could do right now? Like, what if because we have said as a group, as the Indivisible Northern Kentucky group, we coordinate, work with, support multiple other organizations that have their niche as far as what things they're working on. And like you said, there isn't just one group that is focused on healthcare. And that's why this is our probably, if you were looking at issues, this is one of our number one top issues in the state of Kentucky, to look at and help advocate for and improve. So, what would be the number one thing on your list to tell people, or tell a group like ours, hey, work on this aspect?
Um,
We give you the do 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 do.
if I had to pick, if I picked one thing that I think would actually make a positive impact, just across the board, whether it was cost of care, physician shortages, whatever, it would be getting more physicians in places of power to actually work on these issues. It sickens me to no end that the people who write the laws about healthcare, 9 times out of 10, they're not seeing patients.
Right.
They've never seen a patient. They don't know what goes into, it's not just someone comes in and sees a doctor and says, I'm sick, figure me out. It's I'm sick, and I'm sick because I can't afford the pills that you've prescribed me, or the pharmacy that carries that one specific drug I need is an hour away from my house, or
Isn't in my network.
or isn't in my network, for instance. There's so many issues. The only people who's going to know how to solve all of those that isn't a special interest group is going to be a doctor or a nurse practitioner or a PA, or a registered nurse. We need more people who have been in the trenches of healthcare to write the laws about healthcare. I've never once in my life built a house, but if I started writing laws about how housing should be built, I can guarantee you the results aren't going to be pretty. And I think that unfortunately that's a lot of the reason we've got here.
I love you, and I love that practical thinking, and I so agree.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
agree. Um, yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, we appreciate you. Appreciate your perspective on health issues in Kentucky, and hopefully we can make some improvements over the next few years.
I hope. I think there's a lot of people in the state who are invested in getting there. And like I said, it's not gonna be fixed in 10 or 20 years. It's gonna take decades of work. But I really do think there's people who care and like work passionately on this. But like I said, I'm always down to talk about it. So I'll talk your ear off if you're willing to listen.
And we will let you.
Yep.
We will definitely, especially like I want to pay attention to this week, as we all know, starts part 2 of Kentucky General Assembly 2025.
Yep.
And so this week is when we're going to start finding out, which there's always a flurry of crazy, right?
Oh yeah.
But a lot of times, those crazy bills, thankfully, even the people in charge are like, yeah, that's too crazy for us. And they put it back on the back burner and they don't get a hearing or anything else. What I'm really hoping for this week is for the cream to rise to the top, if you will, that we see which bills are most important to the legislature this year and take any actions necessary, positive or negative, to try to affect change where we can. And I'm really interested to see where healthcare fits in this session this year, especially with, like all what we talked about last week and what's been in the news pervasively with all of the federal spending cuts and everything getting shut down and people in chaos and yeah, 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 yeah. I'm real curious to see how our state legislators are going to respond, and if within the past 3 weeks when they were off, if any of those shell bills all of a sudden got filled, or if a flurry of new bills has been filed in order to try to come into alignment with what the administration is doing.
Yeah, I suspect we're going to see a number of those actions this week. Um, I mean, they've done stuff like that in the past to a lesser degree, but I think we're going to see, I think the crazies are going to be strong with them this week.
I do too, and I keep imagining this shows my Gen X age here, Drew. If you have you ever seen the movie The Fly?
Yeah,
I've not.
Be afraid, be very afraid.
yeah,
That's kind of the that's kind of the feeling that I have. But I also feel like two things. I think we're much better organized this time around. I think we have a lot more people paying attention,
hmm
but I also think we're better at being behind the scenes
yeah,
in terms of not allowing every little thing to get out into the public space. And that's a good thing because we all have enough, stress and worry with everything that's going on. And I think having our efforts organized,
yep,
having more active people involved than we've seen since 2017, and then having those people know that, okay, in order to be organized, in order to be involved, we need to be doing these things behind the scenes to be prepared.
yep,
There's something to be said for both shock value and shame value, and we're going to bank on that a lot.
yeah.
I think, like, speaking to being organized and trying to be more organized this time than we were, what was it? Almost, damn, 8 years ago. It's crazy to think
Yep.
that.
You were just a wee lad. No, I'm
Yeah,
kidding.
so I was still in high school.
Oh my
I
God,
think
I feel old.
there's going to be hell to pay in the midterms for some of the things that have happened. And you know, we were at our county level meeting for the Grant County Democrats, and Debbie and I were talking, and she was saying this is the dog that caught the car.
Yeah.
They don't know how to govern. They truly don't. They know how to rule, but they don't know how to govern, and there's a difference. And I think when you start seeing some of the negative things they're doing and the nasty things they're doing, you know, people might not believe this, but not everyone that voted for Trump is an evil person. And I understand some of the reasons that they might have voted for him. And when they start to see, oh, my grocery bill isn't going to go down, my gas prices aren't going to go down significantly. What do you mean I can't buy a home? The prices have gone up still. There's gonna be hell to pay for some of these negative, nasty things they've done, whether that's here at home in Kentucky or whether that's nationally. And I
Oh,
really truly believe that there's going to be a blue wave that is going to be a tsunami in 2026.
I think we're going to see a lot of backlash here in Kentucky from the tariffs um, that Trump put on Canada specifically. I see where in Canada and Ontario, they're removing all liquor from the U.S., particularly from red states, from the shelves. So that means all that Kentucky bourbon is being taken off the shelves in Canada.
right. And Canada is our number one for the state of Kentucky, our number one trade partner, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. And so that's going to be significant in a lot of other ways as well. There's a letter out. I don't know if you all have seen it or not from the, I don't United Home Builders of America or something like that. They're terrified of these tariffs and
Well,
talking
because the
about,
lumber, that's where
right,
we get all of our
right,
lumber.
right, and how it's going to dramatically increase the cost of buying a home and everything else. And what's funny is at the time that they were having this hit us, is also the time where you have at least in last year's election, I know it's going to be a part of this year's discussions as well, the housing crisis,
Hmm
where we have all of these ridiculously expensive, homes sitting empty, and yet we have homeless people who have nowhere to go because they it's they can't afford anything that's available. There is no low income housing.
No,
There
none.
there's not even what I personally would consider middle income housing. It is ridiculously expensive in a state like Kentucky that falls continuously in the bottom 5 in terms of poverty, or top 5, depending on how you look at it, in terms of poverty, you know, people, there's just no places for people to live. They don't want to live on the streets. They have no choice.
Right.
And now that our legislators made being homeless a crime, now these people, and it goes back to a tax dollar thing, these people are going to jail, which costs even more tax dollars, and they expect to be able to find these people who can't get a job because they're homeless. I mean, the
Hmm.
cycle that they have perpetuated is just mind-boggling to me. And so to circle back, these tariffs are going to have dramatic effects on Kentuckians, and it doesn't matter who you voted for, it's going to
Yep.
affect you.
100.
Completely agree.
100. Um, so kind of shifting gear a little bit. Let's talk about Union, Kentucky for a few minutes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, someone fill me in on the drama because I was reading this on the car on the way up, and I was like, "Huh? Like, really? People care this much about the city commissioner race in Union, Kentucky?"
Right.
Well,
So
it,
here,
go
let
ahead.
me give some the
Give us the
background on it.
411.
Yeah, yeah. So what happened was this, Union has there's incorporated union and there's non-incorporated union, right? So when it comes to the city council, a city council only covers incorporated areas of a city. The rest of union, the unincorporated, is only covered by the county, by Boone County in terms of government,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
So what happened is, and I don't know how long this has been in effect, who originated this plan, but when they started, consolidating polling places in that, and I'm not talking like last year, I know this was quite a while ago, they put precincts in together in one polling place that contained both people who live in an incorporated precinct and people who lived in unincorporated precincts. So when it came time to vote for city council, only those people from the precinct that was in incorporated union were supposed to cast votes, right? Whereas
Right.
the people in the unincorporated part were not supposed to cast votes. Well, one or more, I actually think it was more than one, poll workers apparently did not either get proper instruction or understand it completely. And so ballots were handed out such that some people who lived in unincorporated union got the ballots with the city council race on it. And by the same token, people who lived in incorporated union and were supposed to be able to vote on that race got the ballots without that race included on it.
Hmm.
Okay. So, and the race there were 5 people in the race, but there's only 4 seats on the council. So the guy who finished last has brought suit because of the error that happened during the election. And he lost by like 64 votes compared to the next person up who made it onto the council.
Yep.
And Justin Krigler, who is the Boone County clerk, already looked into this. The problem was recognized quickly and fixed within 2 hours. And so what you have to look at with that is this. Kentucky starts voting at 6 o'clock in the morning. So between 6 o'clock and 8 a.m. is when this error occurred, and it was fixed within that time frame. According to the records, the ability for the county clerks and secretary of state, et cetera, you can see who voted. You don't know how people voted, but you can see who voted. There's a public record of that, of who voted,
Right.
right?
Right.
And at what time they voted. So you can tell how many votes were collected between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. Right? So he determined that, even though there was an error, there weren't enough votes cast at a time at that time to have made a difference in that race.
Right.
But Mr. Biden is pushing it anyway. So they weren't happy with what Kriegler said in his investigation, so they went to court. Well, now you have this judge Brueggemann, and he's from a different planet
Yeah.
because his brilliant idea was to vacate the election and authorize the mayor of Union to now appoint the rest of the committee members. So,
And he's saying that that's the way the law reads.
and I'm like, how in the hell is that possible? Because you are stripping away every single eligible voter in that race. You are stripping away their right to vote.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's just astronomical that you're taking away that right from people. That's number one. Number two, like I said, I mean, we're talking. I mean, yes, Union is the fastest growing city in the state right now. However, it's still comparatively small.
It's only 7,600 people.
Like, we're not talking Covington
Yeah.
or Lexington or Louisville. We're talking a city where you could actually see how many people from incorporated Union voted. You know who they are.
Yeah.
Each one of those individuals should be invited, in my opinion, to cast a new vote. That and nobody else, because even if there are people in incorporated Union who did not vote, they should not get the opportunity to vote now.
I understand what you're saying, but I think it'd be okay to even have a special election in the city of Union and go, okay, we're going to have a special election to do this over in the city of Union, incorporated Union, and vote or don't vote, whatever. But to come up and say, okay, the mayor gets to appoint, and it's not just that the mayor gets to appoint all of them. The mayor gets to appoint one commissioner, and then the mayor and that one commissioner get together and have to agree to a
It's a
second
cabal.
commissioner. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then those three get together and so on and so on.
right. I mean, it's just I don't know. The other thing is that um all of the members, including the mayor of the Union City Council, City Commission, whatever, all except one are Republican.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to lie. My fear is that this is a deliberate attempt to oust the one person who's a Democrat.
Yeah.
It sure feels that way. I just, but leave it to the people involved to see what's going to happen. Now, what we do know is this. There is a city commission meeting tomorrow night, Monday, February 3rd at 6:30 p.m. at the Union City Building. And I highly recommend that anybody who lives in incorporated Union goes to that meeting to see what the heck Larry Solomon, the mayor, is going to do.
Yeah.
Because if I picture a scenario where he literally picks the people who, according to the ballots, were voted in, except for
The one Democrat.
the one Democrat and the guy complaining and wanting things changed.
Yeah.
And that to me is just, it's usurping democracy and negating people's right to vote.
Stop the steal.
Stop the steal. I love it. So, what's going to happen from here? I don't know. I mean, there's the rest of the information that I have is speculative, so I don't want to
Right.
put that out into the atmosphere as far as how different parties involved are feeling and what their thoughts are and going forward. I just know that this is definitely a public issue that we want to highlight, that we want to get all affected parties the information and have them get to where they can go to have a say, and to see how it all transpires. I think it's going to be very interesting. But man, if I lived in Boone County, you can bet your sweet buppy I'd have some questions for that judge. Like what? Or
Yeah.
I'd be going, how can this be the either that or I'd be going, how can this be the law? This is a law that needs to be changed. Because I don't care what you're registered as, Democrat, Republican, Independent, Green Party, whatever the heck you are, nobody deserves to have their right to vote taken away for any
Yeah,
reason.
not at all. And yeah, it's Boone County's such a weird place and just keeps getting weirder. Fun fact, did you know the mayor of Union, Larry Solomon, his middle name is King, Larry
Ugh,
King
King Solomon.
Solomon.
Oh Lord.
Larry King Solomon.
I'm
Well,
not just knowing Union. I'm not surprised.
Well played,
wow.
sir. Well played.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, that's a local issue that we always want to get out there. How are we feeling on the federal level, guys? What's the most daunting thing in your mind? What's challenging you? What do you wish you could scream about or do something about? Give us your thoughts, Drew.
The obvious one is obviously praying to God that RFK doesn't lead the Department of Health and Human Services.
I can
Agreed.
imagine.
I was just gonna say Robert fucking Kennedy. Jesus Christ.
I mean, like, that dude is crazy. I mean, there's like no other good way to put it.
He gives crazy people a bad name.
Well, and
I, I would agree with that.
what kills me is the chair of the Health and Human Services Committee, the Republican in charge, is a doctor from Louisiana. Like over what 30 years as a
Medical doctor?
yeah, over 30 years as a gastroenterologist.
Really?
And so a lot of people are questioning what he's going to do. And if you watched any of it, and you can go, watch the videos, you can search YouTube for videos of these confirmation hearings.
Oh, they're awesome. Pop some popcorn first. It's
Right.
worth it.
And I can't remember the senator's name, but anyway, he was doing everything in his power. You know, that leading the horse to water thing. He was practically begging RFK to
And RFK's
say,
like,
Take the
nope.
softball questions and
Yeah.
no, it wasn't so. He was practically begging him to say that vaccines do not cause autism,
Yeah.
or that that vaccines were saying he wanted him to change his stance on vaccines in any way, shape, or form, and RFK just would not do it. And you could almost feel the frustration roll off of him through the camera. And he's
I'm
in a
trying
tough
to help you, bro.
right, but he's in a tough race in the midterms as well.
Yeah.
Because he was also one of the Republicans who actually voted for impeachment the first time around.
Oh, wow.
So he knows he's going to get primaried from the
Mhm.
right. And he's looking at this complete fool that's been nominated for this position. He built his life, his career on medicine and being someone you could, trust with your health. And so, man, he's got a lot of. I would not want to be caught up inside his head right now because
I feel like he should have
everybody's after him.
I don't know. I just kind of look at it this way: is like I feel like I have where I stand, being in training, obviously, is like I have an ethical and legal obligation to act in the best interest of my patients.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was voting right now on whether or not this man should lead the Department of, Health and Human Services, mind you that he has no qualifications whatsoever in healthcare. He's, like I said, he's never seen a patient once in his life. I could never see why any self-respecting physician would want to vote for that. I mean, and I'll take it a step further. You could give me any person who is not a physician. I truly believe that is one of those things where you should just let a doctor take care of it, or someone who's actually been in healthcare,
Right.
and then just
Right.
let them do their thing and get out of their way.
I
Right.
mean, as a doctor, right? You take that oath first do no harm.
Yep.
Voting for RFK is doing tremendous harm.
People will die. There is no ifs, ands, or
Yeah,
buts. I mean, there's a tuberculosis outbreak in this country right now. Like,
Right. In Kansas, and it's the worst one on record.
yeah, like people will die.
yeah.
You know what? And I'm going to go ahead and take it a step further and say the fact that the CDC can't communicate with other scientific agencies and bodies of science, that alone, people are dying somewhere in America right now because of that decision.
That is just crazy that they can't even communicate. They've been forbidden to communicate with other
And all
organizations.
that was the only reason for that is because someone's ego got hurt because they mishandled COVID 4 years ago.
Yep.
Oh,
That's all that is.
absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely.
Yeah. So, well, I don't, so, the usual chaos going on there. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing right now, my biggest concern. Boebert, that's a concern too, but I don't think she's gonna, I don't think she's gonna get confirmed. What do you
Yeah.
think?
I'm sorry. I had to step away for a moment.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, Boebert
Oh God. I
I don't think she's gonna get confirmed.
it what is Bobert, are you talking gnome?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I meant no.
She's already been confirmed.
Has she?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yes. She donned her official jacket and was on the streets of New York, I think.
Oh yeah, I saw
Oh,
that little.
that's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's right for some of the ice raids last week.
Yeah, yeah. Tough guy Barbie.
Yeah.
Even
I
if I was a right wing politician, I don't know if I'd want that to be my image. Like growing up, breaking up families. I don't. I guess it might play pretty well for her, but I don't think that'd be the image I'd be building.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, I think Pam Bondi is going to get confirmed. Even though, her prior history, especially with Trump, I mean, all you got to do is flip the letter at the end. If she were a Democrat, it, Republicans would be just screaming from the rooftops. They would
Yeah.
never vote for a Democratic nominee that had identical backgrounds.
Hmm.
And
It's
you can say that across the board.
I was gonna say,
it's concerning to me because all of the talk in the weeks after the election was, oh my God, we need to change our messaging. We need to be different about how we communicate to the American people. And then you have these people who are wholly underqualified or just not qualified whatsoever for the positions they've been nominated for. And I mean, it's like we're quiet as a church mouse. I mean,
hmm
the only people doing the heavy lifting on this are independent organizations such as Indivisible and other organizations around the country. Like I have yet to see anyone from the DNC give, and obviously I know there was the DNC election, but still, like I have not seen anyone give some sort of inspiring, galvanizing speech of saying, "Hey, we're going to fight this. We might lose the fight, but here's how we're going to make it a hell of a lot harder for them to do this."
Right.
There's parliamentary procedure to slow these things down, make it impossible to do, and nobody really seems that interested in doing it. And I have to sit and wonder, like, all right, what's the play here? And I sit around struggling to come up with a good one.
and, it's
Well,
interesting you bring up the DNC because, right, they just elected Ken Martin from Minnesota as the new DNC chair.
Yay, another uninspiring person who surely won't be any different this time, will it?
I'm really, really, really torn. I mean, I was very supportive. I wanted it to be Ben Winkler.
Likewise.
Right. Right.
Indivisible National endorsed him, which is not the reason. I put it out on my personal social media that I was for him before they even did the endorsement. It was a weird mix though because he was also endorsed by Nancy Pelosi. And then you had, which is a weird,
Yeah, that's weird.
We just said yesterday, as we were all agreeing with Rand Paul on something, that this has created some weird bedfellows on
Yeah,
certain issues. But then when you look at what Ken Martin did, he went around actively contacting all of the other state party chairs and getting votes that way.
right.
That to me is closer to the uninspired
It's
insider baseball that
right.
we all are sick of.
It seems like the same old again.
It does, but on the other hand, then I flip back the other way. He is from Minnesota, the land of Tim Walz. He has a 25-0 record. He works with what is it? Not the Working Families Party, something else, some kind of labor party out
Farm and
there.
labor.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Side note, I was trying to get the Grant County Democrats to change their name to the Grant County Democratic Farm and Labor Party, because I feel like that rolls off the tongue a lot better. And I feel like you can market that one a lot better.
I like that.
I have this, sorry to get off topic, but like I have this feeling locally that in the state, like our brand is poisoned. Like it's just not,
Oh yeah.
aside from Andy, nobody wants us. So, how do you do that? You need to rebrand, run new candidates, new ideas, but I don't think anybody.
Well, and again, I'm going to go back to the debate we just have over what went down with the DNC.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the problem is at the state level, there is way, way, way too much insider baseball. This hand-picked,
Yep.
state central executive committee, these hand-picked other positions that is this, exchange of favors back, pats on the back type thing
Right.
that have been notorious, going all the way back to the days of Jimmy Hoffa or
Right.
beyond. I mean, that's the kind of crap that has to end. And until we have that, that's the image that I think we need to improve. And I think that the biggest way to do that, number one, is to be much more transparent. Number two, to have much more public votes on all kinds of things, and open up these meetings for public participation. I mean, anybody can walk into a county Democratic Party meeting. They're open to the public. They're supposed to be placed in the public eye, giving people notice of when and where and all that kind of stuff. I personally believe the same thing should happen with the state central committee.
Yes.
And that instead of, everybody doesn't have to travel to Frankfurt. Everybody doesn't have to have open mics, but they could put the entire thing on Zoom for anybody across the state to watch and listen to what's being talked about, and then give a public response period.
Right.
If we want to, the thing that we need to rebuild is trust. That's
Yep.
what we've lost, and the only way to get that back is
Transparency.
to be more transparent and open.
Absolutely.
Part of it falls on the when we're in power the way we were from 2020 to 2022, where we have the Senate. Obviously, we only had a 50-50 split, but like if we would have had 2 or 3 more seats, we need to be the party that legislates and creates laws and makes a difference and doesn't just lecture. Because I feel so many times I watch the news or I scroll through social media and I see another national Democrat lecturing, standing on their soapbox screaming.
Right.
If I'm a person who, I got a lot of flack from other Democrats for saying this, but like, I don't think our legislative agenda from 2020 to 2022 met the moment. I mean, that was a big moment to stamp it out.
Yep.
This neo-fascism that's going on. We could have ended it, put it out cold right there by passing laws that truly made people's lives better. But we just didn't have the numbers in the Senate to make it feasible. And then obviously you have the Supreme Court, which is going to be an uphill battle for probably the next 50 years.
See, I'm going to slightly, not even, I'm going to disagree with you on that part because, that is part of the messaging from the Republican Party that has been extremely successful. Is this misrepresentation of the Biden administration? Because the Biden administration did a hell of a lot of good, and they passed a hell of a lot of laws, and were the most pro labor, pro working family agenda and laws since FDR, in my opinion.
Yep.
I mean, they did a lot of good. Unfortunately, everything went to hell in a handbasket in 2024. And because of that, and we could have 3 podcasts on why that was the way it was, but and now we're in the situation where we have a felon in charge who has absolutely stripped all of it. All of the last 4 years is virtually being erased. He has even now written an executive order in an attempt to repeal Joe Biden's contractual agreements with the unions in the 30 days prior to him leaving office.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't surprise me at all because Trump's notorious for reneging on deals and screwing labor. So,
right. But what's real interesting is, the head of the Teamsters supported him, and they're all up in arms. And then you've got what's happening with all the federal employees. And, they all just had these new contracts prior to Trump coming in,
right.
and that they were counting on. These are real people. These are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people who counted on these new contracts and the provisions within them, who thought that, well, this is a done deal, signed by the president, announced by the union, yada, yada, yada. I mean,
certainly Donald Trump wouldn't go back on a contract that we have.
My question is, can he? I mean, it seems to me, I don't care if it was in the last 30 days of of Biden's presidency. It seems to me that once those contracts have been signed, for the duration of the contract, I don't know if Trump has the authority to wipe those out or not. Somebody else is going to have to tell me that.
For argument's sake, let's say he doesn't. Who's going to enforce that?
See, and that's where I keep saying the courts are crucial. I think the courts have played a critical role. I think they're going to continue to play a critical role.
In the words of J.D. Vance, the court and what army are going to enforce that?
Well, we'll see.
I mean, I'm serious. That's what J.D. Vance said, that even if the Supreme Court would rule against Trump, what army are they going to use to enforce that?
Well, and see, and that's where I think that comes back to the point where, and the tie into the last thing I wanted to talk about, which is great. There's all of these flyers going up about a protest on Wednesday, February 5th.
Yeah.
For everybody to go to their state capital, blah, 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 because of, there's such heightened emotion right now. And allowing us to make decisions on those heightened emotions is going to get people killed or hurt or do a lot more damage than we want. And I think it ties into that. I mean, I heard from a bunch of people who either work for the federal government or their spouse or child works for the federal government and telling me their stories and saying, what do I do? Where do I go? Can you help me? And I directed people as to the best of my ability. And if I had no answer whatsoever, I went and searched for it. But the point being, now is not the time. We're not there yet, and it's not a matter of fear
No.
to go out and protest. And I want to make that really, 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 really clear. When you see these flyers and things, and there's no organization or individual claiming credit for it as a sponsor or advocate or whatever, when there's no direction, there's no
What is the strategic outcome supposed to be of this tactic?
right, and not only
Consolidate
that,
power.
well, not no, he's talking about the protest.
The protest.
Oh, my bad,
for
my
the
bad, my bad.
protest.
Yeah,
I thought
and
you meant all of Trump's bullshit.
No,
no,
no. This
and whenever
protest,
we
what is the goal to achieve of this
right.
protest?
Right. And the other thing is there's no direction. It's just show up there at a certain time. There's no once you get there, this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, and in case of an issue, call this person or whatever. There's no safety training ahead of time. Nothing. It's just here's a flyer, show up at your Capitol on this day at this time.
Good luck.
It makes me extremely concerned for the safety of people that we all know and love. I'm not one to buy into conspiracy theories. However, this would be the perfect opportunity for someone to take pictures of the crowd.
Yep.
And get personal information about anyone who chose to attend.
Well,
I mean,
you got to think about this now. If everyone that's a political enemy is Antifa, and Antifa is an enemy of the state, the dominoes can fall. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And my conspiracy about it is, I wouldn't be surprised if within this term, not these specific protests now, but in Project 2025, there was a plan to declare martial law to delay elections if needed.
Right. And see, that's what I'm afraid of with something like this, is that if enough people it doesn't even have to be every state, but if enough people show up at their capital and they get there and there's no one there to tell them what to do, there's no one there to tell them what's going on, but a crowd develops, you can bet your sweet ass that every Capitol Police Force is going to be on high alert, and it gives him that excuse to go to that level.
And not only that, it only takes one idiot to do something stupid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, if we were sponsoring something like this, if we were advocating something like this, you would get more instructions than you could ever imagine anybody had to be given for a protest.
When we do protests, we're like, okay, here are the places that you can park. Here are the places you cannot park. Make sure you don't park where you can't park because your car will be towed or ticketed. Here's where we're going to meet. We will have marshals. The marshals will have loudspeakers and they will have vests on, and they will be trained on what we are going to do. So listen to the marshals. They'll tell you where we're going to go, when we're going to go to it. Here's what the program's going to look like. There's going to be speakers. There's going to be this. There's going to be that.
Right. Exactly. All of that.
We've done a ton of these.
Yes, we have. And very successful ones, I might add. So, this upcoming event on February the 5th, I personally, in good conscience, cannot advocate for anybody to go. Now, I'm not going to say don't go. I would never be one to try to stop people, but if you do want to
be careful.
Be extremely cautious. I mean, know your surroundings. Just be careful, please.
Yep. All right. Well, this has been one of our longer episodes.
And a lot of fun. Thank you, Drew, for coming and talking about healthcare and giving us the young people's perspective. While I go over here doddering.
Well, listen. You have me back on, and I'll just shoot the shit with you. We won't even talk about healthcare. We'll get into something else.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
You can come back anytime.
Okay, I'll take you up on that.
Definitely have you back.
You get in the mood and feel like, man, I got to talk about this. You just hit us up.
Well, that's like, I want to sit around the house and bitch about all this like anybody. But I think the people around me get tired of listening.
Exactly.
We hear ya.
We hear you. All right. So, yeah, if you guys reach out to us, you know how to get a hold of us. You can email us, you can message us, join our Facebook page, and keep track of what we got going on.
And Blue Sky is exploding for us right now.
Yes, Blue Sky, we're up to like 520 or something like that.
We went
Nice.
we went from like 480 to like 550 in a day and a half.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just exploding right now.
Yeah. So, and what's our handle on Blue Sky?
Indivisible NKY, just like it's everywhere. It's the same thing anywhere you look.
Indivisible NKY. So check that out and keep up to date. Check out the Legislative Resource Commission this week, and
don't forget our meeting. We have our meeting Wednesday.
Oh, right.
6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Kenton County Public Library in Covington.
We're at the Covington one this week or
Yes.
this month.
Yes.
Okay. Last month we were at the Erlanger one. So.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll see you there. And in the meantime, it's been good talking with you. This is Roberto Henriquez.
And Dickerson.
And Drew Lawrence.
Everybody have a good week. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Thanks.